On Christmas Eve, the Railyard, a cozy bar nestled near River Oaks in Houston, buzzed with its usual patrons. Behind the counter, Renee Brown, a dedicated bartender and single mother, managed the festive crowd with her characteristic warmth and efficiency. Balancing 2 jobs and homeschooling her 9-year-old daughter, Renee's life was a testament to resilience and hard work. As the evening unfolded, an unexpected guest walked through the door, Post Malone, the renowned music artist known for his chart-topping hits and distinctive style. Accompanied by fellow artist Shabuzi, Post's presence immediately electrified the atmosphere. Regulars and newcomers alike were thrilled, but none more so than Renee, who, despite her professionalism, couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. Post Malone, in town to perform with Beyoncé at the Houston Texans' halftime show on Christmas Day, chose the Railyard for a quiet evening away from the limelight. He mingled effortlessly, his genuine demeanor making everyone feel at ease. Renee ensured their glasses were never empty, her service reflecting her commitment to making every patron's experience memorable. As the night progressed, the bar's regulars, eager to show their appreciation for Post's unannounced visit, discreetly covered his tab. When Renee informed him that his bill had been taken care of, Post insisted on being charged a nominal amount. Puzzled but compliant, Renee charged him $1, unaware of his intentions. It wasn't until she collected the receipt that Renee's world shifted. There, in unmistakable ink, was a tip amounting to $20,000. Overwhelmed, she felt tears welling up, her hands trembling as she processed the magnitude of the gesture. In a profession where tips often make the difference between making ends meet and falling short, this act of kindness was nothing short of a miracle. Post Malone's generosity extended beyond the monetary gift. He took the time to converse with Renee, expressing genuine interest in her life and challenges. For Renee, it wasn't just the financial relief that moved her, but the recognition and empathy from someone of his stature. This heartwarming encounter exemplifies the profound impact that acts of kindness and humanity can have, especially during the holiday season. Post Malone's deed didn't just provide financial support. It offered hope and a renewed sense of faith in the goodness of people. Renee Brown stood behind the bar, staring at the receipt in disbelief. $20,000. It didn't seem real. Her hands trembled as she held the slip of paper, her heart pounding against her chest. She had served countless customers over the years, worked through exhausting double shifts, smiled through personal struggles, but never in her wildest dreams had she imagined something like this. She looked up at Post Malone, her voice barely above a whisper. This can't be right. Post, still as laid back and humble as ever, flashed her a warm smile. It's right. Merry Christmas. Tears welled in Renee's eyes. She wiped them quickly, but the emotions were impossible to contain. She wasn't someone who asked for help, but this was more than help. It was hope. What Post didn't know was that Renee had been struggling more than usual lately. Bills had piled up. The cost of rent had increased, and with a daughter to support, she had been barely scraping by. Just days earlier, she had debated whether to pick up another side job to make ends meet, knowing it would take more time away from her child. And now, with the stroke of a pen, Post Malone had changed everything. I don't even know what to say, Renee finally managed, her voice shaking. Post shrugged. You don't have to say anything. You work hard. You deserve it. The words hit her harder than she expected. It wasn't just the money. It was the fact that someone saw her, really saw her. A few customers at the bar had overheard and were now clapping and cheering, celebrating the moment with her. Some wiped away tears of their own. This was more than just a celebrity giving a big tip. It was a reminder of what generosity and kindness could do. Renee took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "You have no idea what this means to me," she said, looking him in the eyes. Post grinned. "Merry Christmas. Just promise me one thing. Enjoy it." And with that, he raised his glass, toasting to a moment neither of them would ever forget. But what happened next? That's what made this story even more unforgettable. Renee Brown stood behind the bar, still clutching the receipt as if it might disappear. The reality of Post Malone's $20,000 tip was just beginning to sink in. The weight of her financial stress, the overdue bills, the worry about providing for her daughter, suddenly felt lighter. The cheers from customers still echoed around her, a few regulars shaking their heads in disbelief. Some clapped her on the back, others wiped away tears. The energy inside the Railyard had shifted. This wasn't just another night at the bar. It was a moment of pure humanity. A fellow bartender leaned in, whispering, "Renee, I've never seen you cry at work before." She let out a shaky laugh, wiping her eyes. "I don't think I've ever had a reason to before." Meanwhile, Post Malone, ever the humble guy, waved off the attention, casually taking a sip of his drink like he hadn't just changed someone's life in a single moment. That's when one of the bar's regulars, an older man named Jim, stood up and cleared his throat. "You know," he said, raising his glass, "I've been coming to this bar for years, and I've watched Renee hustle through every single shift. Never complains, never gives less than her best. If anyone deserves this, it's her." More cheers erupted. Some customers even pulled out their wallets, inspired by what they had just witnessed. One young couple at the end of the bar whispered for Renee to come over, pressing a $500 tip into her hand. "We don't have Post Malone money," the woman said with a smile, "but we want to be part of this too." Renee's eyes widened. "You don't have to do that." The man shook his head. "We want to." And just like that, Post Malone's act of kindness had ignited something bigger. People weren't just celebrating, they were giving. They were reminded that sometimes a small gesture, whether it's $500 or a kind word, can change someone's day, or even their life. Renee turned back to Post, her voice still shaking. "I promise I'll pay this kindness forward." Post nodded, grinning. That's the whole point. But the surprises weren't over yet. What happened next would leave Renee completely speechless. Renee Brown had barely caught her breath from the overwhelming generosity unfolding around her. First, Post Malone's $20,000 tip. Then, customers inspired to give even more. It was turning into a night she would never forget. But just as she thought the surprises were over, Post leaned in with one final unexpected gesture. "So, what's the dream?" he asked, casually stirring his drink. Renee blinked. "The dream?" "Yeah," he said with a smile. "What's that one thing you'd do if life wasn't always getting in the way?" Renee hesitated. No one had ever asked her that. She had spent so many years working to survive that she had almost forgotten how to dream. After a pause, she took a breath and said, "I always wanted to open my own little café, a place where people can come together, good coffee, good food, and just feel at home." Post nodded thoughtfully. "Sounds like a place I'd want to go." She chuckled, shaking her head. "Yeah, well, dreams are expensive." And then, Post said something that made her entire world stop. "So, why don't you start now?" Renee froze. "Wait, what?" Post reached into his pocket, pulled out a small business card and slid it across the bar. "That's my guy," he said. "He helps small businesses get off the ground. If you're serious about it, he'll walk you through everything you need to know. No strings attached." Renee stared at the card like it might burst into flames. "You don't have to do this," she whispered, her voice breaking. Post shrugged. "You didn't have to work as hard as you do every day." "But you do." Tears welled up in Renee's eyes again. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about someone believing in her dream, in what she could become. The entire bar had fallen silent, watching as Renee held the card to her chest. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. Post grinned. "Say you'll go for it." And in that moment, Renee realized this wasn't just a lucky night. It was the beginning of something bigger. But what happened the next morning? That would prove just how life-changing this moment really was. The next morning, Renee Brown woke up feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. For years, she had started her mornings the same way, worrying about bills, juggling shifts, and making mental calculations of how much she'd need to keep food on the table. But today was different. Today, she wasn't just surviving. She was dreaming. As she sipped her coffee, she kept glancing at the small business card Post Malone had handed her the night before. It felt surreal, like a scene from a movie. She reached for her phone, heart pounding as she dialed the number. "Hello?" A friendly voice answered. Renee took a deep breath. "Hi, I was given your number by Post Malone. He said you could help me start a business." The man on the other end chuckled. "Ah, so you're Renee. He already told me about you, said you're the hardest working bartender in Texas and that you have a dream worth chasing." Renee felt her breath hitch. "He talked about me? So tell me," the man continued, "what's your vision?" For a moment, Renee hesitated. The fear of what if crept in, the same fear that had kept her from believing she could do anything outside of bartending. But then she thought about her daughter. She thought about what she wanted to teach her, that dreams aren't just for the lucky, they're for the ones brave enough to go after them. So she cleared her throat and said, "I want to open a café, a place that feels like home, a place where people can sit, talk, and just be. Good coffee, fresh pastries, maybe even live music nights." The man smiled through the phone. "I like it. Let's make it happen." Renee's eyes filled with tears. "You really think I can do this?" "I don't think you can. And Post does too. Why else would he send you my way?" At that moment, she felt it. This wasn't just a lucky tip from a celebrity. This was a chance, a door opening, a life-changing moment. And as she hung up the call, she realized she was finally ready to step through it. But what happened next? That's what turned this moment into something even bigger than she ever imagined. Renee Brown stood outside a small, vacant cafe space in Houston, gripping the keys in her hands. This was it. What had started as an unbelievable night at the Railyard, a $20,000 tip from Post Malone, a business card that promised an opportunity, had led to this very moment. It had been months of planning, paperwork, and late-night brainstorming sessions. She had doubted herself 100 times, but every time she wavered, she thought of her daughter. She thought of the lesson she wanted to teach her, that fear should never be the reason to hold back from chasing a dream. The man Post Malone had connected her with had helped every step of the way, introducing her to investors, mentors, and business planners who wanted nothing more than to see her succeed. And now she was standing in front of the space that would soon be her very own cafe. Tears welled up in her eyes as she unlocked the door and stepped inside. It was empty, the walls bare, the floors dusty, but to her it was already alive. She could see it, cozy tables where customers would sit and chat, the smell of fresh-baked pastries filling the air, the soft hum of music in the background. A place where people, no matter their struggles, could find comfort. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out and smiled at the text on the screen. "Post Malone. I heard you got the keys. Proud of you, Renee. Can't wait to stop by for a coffee." A laugh bubbled up in her throat. Of course, he had kept up with her progress. She typed back quickly. "Renee. First cup is on me. Always." Slipping her phone away, she took a deep breath, running her fingers along the counter that would soon serve her first customers. This was real. This was happening. And all because one person chose to believe in her. Renee knew she'd never be able to fully repay what Post Malone had done for her. But she could do the next best thing. Create a space where kindness, generosity, and second chances lived on. And as she stood in that empty café, one thought echoed in her mind. This is only the beginning. Post Malone's generosity didn't just change Renee's life, it sparked a movement. Now, imagine what could happen if we all chose to believe in someone the way he did. If this story inspired you, share it. Let's keep the kindness going. And just like that, one act of kindness changed a life forever. Post Malone's generosity didn't just help Renee, it gave her a new beginning. This story proves that small moments of kindness can create the biggest ripple effects. Imagine what the world could be if we all lifted each other up like this. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an inspiring story. And don't stop here. Click on one of the videos appearing on your screen for more real-life moments that will leave you speechless.